Ever since making my first timeline video on the channel, making a Mario timeline has been on the to-do list. I started the project quite a while ago but never got around to finishing it, as there seems to be a big issue when it comes to making a timeline for the Mario series specifically. Simply put, there doesn't seem to be one. You'd think there would be, considering the fact that we see his younger years, his time in Brooklyn, and eventually his time in the Mushroom Kingdom. But that's just it. None of this stuff quite adds up. And never has it been more confusing than with Bonanza. Because somehow we're expected to believe that these two characters are the same. It doesn't really add up. Then there's the whole Mario 3 is a play issue, with some aspects of the game pointing toward that fact, and those same things appearing in other titles. Despite all the issues I've found, I'm still going to try my absolute best to make something of this. But I'd like to say from the beginning of this video, if you're looking for a concrete answer, while I can theorize, I don't have anything I believe is for sure the answer. I believe it's most likely tied to information we simply don't have yet. Either that, or there just isn't a timeline for this series, which seems most likely if you're looking at this honestly without bias. I'll also be covering some other neat lore bits in this video, and some pieces of world building established by Bonanza, by the way. This video will contain heavy spoilers for Bonanza, so if you haven't finished it, I'd suggest doing so and coming back once you're done. Ingot Isle is far off from DK Isle, but they never say quite how far. At the end of the game, when the Bonandium route is returning Pauline and DK to the surface, we see them exiting at the opposite end they came in, which suggests that the islands surrounding DK Isle, where the Donkey Kong Country games take place, are opposite from that of New Donk. We know from Yoshi's Island set of games that each of the main Mario characters are Star Children, bestowed with special powers. This could help explain some of their unique abilities, and while it's unclear if Pauline meets this criteria, the game does focus quite heavily on Pauline's power of song. Maybe she's connected to the whole Star Child thing? It's a possibility. Pauline references her grandmother a few times in this game, and some theorize it to be the original Pauline from the Donkey Kong arcade game, aka Lady. We'll get more into that later though. You can unlock her outfit from arcade in Odyssey. Her dance moves also reflect both appearances, with one mimicking the sidestep she does in arcade, and the little jig she does in Odyssey. DK's treehouse makes an appearance in the game within the Nostalgia Country area, and it looks quite a lot like the old design, which is pretty neat. You can also find fossils throughout the game that reference older titles. K. Rool has a reference for all of his prior appearances. There's a fake-out credit scene like in Donkey Kong Country, he uses his blunderbuss from DKC2, his flying machine from DKC3, and of course, we fight him finally in a boxing ring like DK64. I could go on all day with the references and Easter eggs in this game. There's certainly quite a lot. But let's begin discussing what you all came here for. Whatever the hell is going on with this. Let's lay the groundwork and go over a bit of the history covering these three characters. Donkey Kong, as in the arcade game, was the very first game featuring both Mario and Donkey Kong. Pauline was there too for that matter, and this would be their first appearances. Back then, Mario was known as Jumpman, Pauline was simply called Lady, and DK, well, his name hasn't changed. There were a few more Donkey Kong games released, both for arcade and Game & Watch, most notably Donkey Kong Jr. In 1983, we'd see the release of Mario Bros., an arcade game that introduced Luigi as a character. Then in '85, Super Mario Bros. In 1994, Rare, working under Nintendo, would release Donkey Kong Country. This current Donkey Kong, the main character of the Country series, is Cranky Kong's, the original Donkey Kong from the arcade game's, grandson. So, the grandson of Cranky and the son of DK Jr., who is MIA currently. This series also introduced characters like Diddy, the nephew of current Donkey Kong, and Dixie, Diddy's girlfriend, among others. Did you catch what I said just a few moments ago? This series also introduced characters like Diddy, the nephew of current Donkey Kong. That's actually incorrect. You see, while apes and monkeys are both primates and share the same ancient common ancestor, an ape can't give birth to a monkey, and vice versa. Of course, this is a game, so naturally, it doesn't need to follow that logic. After all, Nintendo never really cares about that, but that idea does give birth to an interesting theory. What if some, or maybe most, of the Kongs aren't related at all? Maybe it's some kind of extended family unit, or tribe? They're unrelated, but play familial roles for each other, thus explaining the whole DK being Diddy's adopted uncle thing. That could be why Cranky changed his name from DK to, well, Cranky. Donkey Kong could be more like a title given to the alpha, or leader of the group. It may have gone from Cranky to Junior to eventually the current DK. The name, that is. There's another possibility, that the name Kong is essentially referring to a species rather than a single family or tribe. Think Manky Kong, or I guess, Manky Kongs? The orange orangutan enemies from Donkey Kong Country. They were exiled by the rest of the Kongs due to their savagery, but they are indeed Kongs as well, despite being orangutans. This could imply that Kong refers to its own species, which includes every type of primate from monkey to ape to orangutan. However, the manual still describes Diddy as his nephew wannabe, and it's doubtful that every single Kong is directly related. So, let's meet somewhere in the middle. All primates within the Mario universe, or at least most of them, share the Kong name, but they don't need to be directly related, given the whole wannabe thing, and the fact that there are monkeys, orangutans, and apes. So why did I just babble on about Kongs for the past few minutes? Well, the Kong family history is tied directly to the Mario series, and the major concern here is, of course, time. If we can figure out how the Kongs operate and what the family structure is like, that could help us figure out how this guy could also be this guy, and how this woman could be this girl. For example, is DK really Cranky's grandson? Maybe adopted? Perhaps DK Jr. is completely out of the picture now, and Cranky adopted DK later in life and just called him grandson because of the age difference. Who knows? Let's talk about New Donk City next. So, the city is already established by the time of Bonanza. Obviously, this is where the young Pauline comes from. Which is already kind of a problem because wasn't she supposed to be from Brooklyn? And somehow also where older Pauline comes from, and where Jumpman Mario saved her before, from DK. In Odyssey, you can take a quiz from Pauline where she references being captured by an ape, and how it was a traumatizing experience. One might think this is referring to DK Arcade, but there's another possibility. You see, Pauline wasn't just captured by DK once, she was also captured in the sequel to Mario vs. Donkey Kong, that being March of the Minis. There, DK, infatuated with Pauline, tries to impress her, is upset when she declines, and kidnaps her. There are two possibilities here. Either this is the same DK from Bonanza that kidnaps her, which I don't think is likely, or this is the new origin of Cranky, which also doesn't make sense because the timeline doesn't add up. It's worth noting that at the end of Bonanza, Pauline is trying to come up with a new song to sing at the town hall, so this could be the starting point of her political career. People know her from her performances. She performs at the town hall. Eventually she gets older, gets into politics. The city knows who she is already. You see where I'm going with this. Just another thing lending to the idea that Mayor Pauline and Bonanza Pauline are the same character. Next, let's talk about Diddy and Dixie again. When you meet them in the racing layer, they bring up in reference the Country series. How they've been on tons of adventures with DK and how one time they even teamed up to save him. That same series that introduced Cranky as the original Donkey Kong. So the Country games, and by extension Bonanza, take place in the future? maybe by grandma she means Mayor Pauline from Odyssey. After all, maybe that's how young Pauline got the gig at the town hall. So the Country series obviously takes place after the arcade games. So then it's two different Paulines. Well, there's one problem with that. After all, they're both really into music. It's their whole thing. Not to mention, why would Pauline celebrate the DK family with the festival if it traumatized her? You could say they're retconning what she said, and that she actually celebrates DK because of Bonanza, but it clearly references arcade DK. The only argument here is that instead of celebrating DK, she's celebrating Jumpman's bravery for saving her. I mean, that's what the song Jump Up Superstar is all about. So then I guess this checks out, right? Mayor Pauline is the Pauline from Arcade, who celebrates Jumpman's bravery with a festival. She's the grandmother of the young Pauline from Bonanza. They just share the same name, and that's how she gets the gig at the town hall. We can already sign off on the fact that the sports games and kart games aren't canon. They're just party games, really, so thankfully they don't mess with the timeline. So the DK Arcade and March of the Minis is the same DK, that being Cranky. DK from Bonanza is obviously Country DK. Except, the timeline still doesn't quite add up, does it? Ladies and gentlemen, might I turn your attention to a little game called Yoshi's Island? You see, it's established in Yoshi's Island that Mario and gang were born in the world of the Mushroom Kingdom. Unless the stork just flew across worlds, which doesn't really seem likely, I mean, come on. In Yoshi's Island DS, we can see Baby Mario along with the rest of the babies, like Peach, Wario, and DK. It's pretty clear this is the Mushroom Kingdom's world. So, how did the bros ever get from the Mushroom Kingdom to Brooklyn? And then back to the Mushroom Kingdom? This affects the timeline as well, and we still don't have a time frame on that. There is one way this works, and that is if we assume New Donk City is the aforementioned Brooklyn all along. That'd be quite the lore change, considering the brothers were always known to be plumbers who came from Brooklyn, so I guess it doesn't quite work. There's also DK. I think it's pretty obvious they were going for modern DK here, that is, Cranky's grandson. Or were they? You see, in the earlier Donkey Kong games, Cranky was actually shown with DK's tie, specifically in Donkey Kong 94, a puzzle platformer, much like the original Donkey Kong, that shared its gameplay. DK Jr. was there too. It's probably safe to assume from this that the tie is passed down, along with the name Donkey Kong. So that's it, right? Pretty cut and dry. First, it's the arcade series, or Yoshi's Island, depending on the continuity, then the Mario series. From there, Country, and eventually Bonanza in Timeline 2. But what do I mean by timeline split? Let me explain. After the final boss of Super Mario Galaxy, there's this major universe-ending event where a black hole is rampaging and destroying everything. The Lumas save Mario and co, and Mario awakens in this strange, vortex-like space. There he finds a massive Rosalina, who tells him about the universe's rebirth. You can even hear the crying baby Lumas in the background. What happened here? Well, the universe was essentially reset. And that's the key point here. There is a popular theory that suggests all of life, as we know it, is located inside of a black hole universe, if you will. It's possible that what we perceive as the Big Bang was actually a bounce point, where matter, having collapsed into a black hole, rebounds due to quantum effects, creating a new universe. Thanks to the Luma stopping the supermassive black hole, that's what happened here. A new universe was born with new galaxies, new worlds, and even a new backstory. While the characters are largely the same, perhaps their stories are different. Instead of being a plumber from Brooklyn, maybe for the first part of Mario's life, he was raised by Yoshis before being sent to his parents. Thus, this helps make the whole "is Jumpman Mario" thing make a lot more sense. Are they the same Mario? Yeah, kinda. Also helps Pauline's backstory in the whole Brooklyn New Donk discrepancy. In this new timeline, instead of Mario fighting Cranky in Brooklyn, he fights him in the Mushroom Kingdom's world with the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. After all, parallel worlds aren't a strange concept for the Mario series. The entirety of the Paper Mario series takes place within a book. Lady/Pauline is in New Donk, where she's saved by Mario, and eventually there's the Country series and Bonanza. There's one more thing we have to mention, an infamous theory surrounding Rosalina specifically. You may remember the age-old theory of Rosalina being Luigi's daughter. Back then, MatPat mentioned the telescope as one of the main reasons for her being Luigi's daughter. It's a great theory, but I personally feel he honed in on the telescope a little too much. Not only have Mario and Peach always been the pair, but there's a little obscure piece of media, specifically a photo, that I'd like to turn your attention to. Nothing like a family portrait, right? This is from Smash 4's All-Star mode. Now, maybe it's just because it's the main trio from Galaxy, but still, they could have tossed Luigi in there. After all, he's playable in Galaxy, but they chose Mario and no Luigi. Puts a really somber twist on Rosalina helping Mario in Galaxy, and her constantly calling Peach Mario's special one. I think our friend Rosalina here has timeline hopped a few times herself. Either that, or she's a lot older than we think. Old enough to have seen the reset of the universe a few times over. That's a theory for another day, though. So, I mentioned the props and play-themed presentation in Mario 3 near the beginning of the video. But that's not the only Mario game with a play-like theme. Mario 2 does the same thing, where you start off the game by choosing characters like actors in a play. I've made a few shorts on this subject, but there's yet another way to interpret the Mario timeline. One that suggests it might not be a Mario timeline at all. Talon and Ingo, two farmers from the Zelda series, look a lot like Mario and Luigi. Their family even wears what appears to be a Bowser brooch around their necks. Portraits of Mario characters also appear in Zelda's castle. And then there's Link's Awakening, which, spoiler alert, takes place entirely in a dream, yet features plenty of Mario characters. So what does this all mean? Well, it could be that the Mario series is just a play, a popular stage production acted out by some of the Zelda cast, one so beloved that even Princess Zelda has taken a liking to it. Maybe Link was a fan of the play too, which is why Mario characters show up in his dream. Plus, Marin, the love interest in Link's Awakening, is a dream version of Malon, connecting that family closely to Link's subconscious. Another timeline idea I was considering is that the sports games, party games, and some of the other side titles might take place after the Universal Reset in Galaxy. Mario, Peach, and even Bowser seem to get along just fine at the end of the game, so maybe in this new world, they've managed to set aside their differences and just have fun karting together. That'd be a really interesting idea, but those other games still need to happen at some point, so I'm afraid that might be a no-go. There is a case where the mainline games reference a spin-off, specifically Mario's racing outfit in Odyssey. You can even see a few brands from Mario Kart 8 printed on it. So either the kart racers are canon and somehow fit into this timeline, or these brands simply exist in this new world, while the kart games themselves don't actually happen. But hold on now, there might be a way to explain this. I made a video on this a while back, but have you ever noticed that the characters in Mario Kart are smaller than the ones on the sidelines? Well, my theory was this. What if the playable characters in Mario Kart are RC cars? Much like the Mario Kart toys you can race around your house. Maybe it's a popular racing game in the Mushroom Kingdom, where they've modeled the racers after their heroes, much like the written world of Paper Mario. Speaking of Paper Mario, we know from Paper Jam that the entire series takes place within a magic book. While characters like Goomboss first appeared there, it's possible his storybook version was simply based on his canonical Mushroom Kingdom appearance from Super Mario 64 DS. There's still a few loose ends though, like why the Star Spirits show up in Mario Party, actually really all of Mario Party, and then there's the sports games. Making a fully coherent argument that ties together all of these Mario series might just be impossible. When it comes to game design, Nintendo clearly prioritizes gameplay over strict continuity. And it's not just Mario. They've stated the Kirby series doesn't have a single timeline. Even the Zelda timeline they released still has a few inconsistencies. But Mario is easily the hardest of them all to make sense of. And I certainly tried. I wasn't the only one brainstorming this though. I'd like to thank the members of my Discord server for helping me out. Speaking of which, if you'd like to join the Discord, the link's down below. I also made a petition recently to oppose a new AI and ID verification system that YouTube is putting out. That'll be in the pinned comment. Thanks for watching. Until next time.